Looking to get quality insurance at a price you can afford? Now you can, thanks to CFM Insurance. CFM specializes in a broad range of farm, home, and rental property coverage. Find an agent right in your local area, as CFM is represented by over 150 independent agents throughout Missouri. For friendly, personal, dependable service from a well-respected leader in the insurance industry, visit cfmutual.com/agents and find an agent near you today.
Missouri politics, 4 weeks until the election, and we are joined by the man that it doesn't matter who's in the White House to most Missourians. Blake Hurst, the president of Missouri Farm Bureau, is their president. Welcome to the show, sir.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
It is an honor to have you on, and you've been making the state more than most, I guess. You're always around the state.
That's right.
But this time you're making some stops with Josh Hawley running for U.S. Senate. What made you decide to get the bus out and go hit some farms with the Attorney General?
Well, it was great fun. We were out last couple days ago, went around the state, had 4 or 5 stops. Big crowds, enthusiastic crowds. You don't win in Missouri, you don't win in a Senate race unless you get out, touch people, talk to people, get out in rural Missouri where our members live. And Josh did that this week, and we were happy to be with him.
So the Farm Bureau has endorsed Josh Hawley for the U.S. Senate. Break me down why you guys came to that conclusion. Well, I guess it was pretty unanimous for one.
It was, yeah, we had about 90%. The way we do it, we have to have a 2/3 majority. He made that easily. Both he and Senator McCaskill spoke to our group, answered questions, spent some time with us, and I think people they responded to Josh's values, to his integrity, to his care, I think, for rural Missouri, and the fact that I think he understands us, and people responded to that, so it wasn't close.
So it's just, I guess, good fortune in a way that you were on this week. When we talked to Eric Bohl in your office, great guy, and I'd mentioned you coming on, we had this set for a little while. And then yesterday, a quote comes out from Senator McCaskill. Basically, he had a group of people in St. Louis that if we do our job, mostly getting a lot of votes in St. Louis County, then we can lose a few in the boot heel. That went over in the boot heel, I mean, like a Cubs fan or something. I mean, it just was not.
Yeah.
I guess it's fortuitous to have, in many ways, you're the leader of rural Missouri. It was not a good look for a very professional politician. I don't think she meant it maliciously, but it didn't come off
No,
good.
It didn't look good, and it's not just the boot heel. Anybody in outstate Missouri responded to that statement. I can't believe she said that. I can't believe she talked about us that way. And so it was a gift to the candidate we've endorsed. So I guess it was a very good day for his campaign.
Well, truth be told, I'm from the boot heel, and I'll be honest with you. I think everybody in the boot heel thinks rich St. Louis people think of them just like that. That if St. Louis does that, you can write it off. I mean,
don't matter that much.
It feeds into a lot of long-term existing things.
Yeah, it does. It just you know, this thing we've got going on between rural and urban, between conservative and liberal, it just doubles down on that. And it's not what we needed as citizens. That's for sure. We don't need to make that split any worse than it is. But it happened, and if Mr. Hawley is any kind of politician, he's going to capitalize on it, and I know we'll be talking about it as well.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me at some point to see Josh Hawley now standing outside the Sikeston city limits or down in Charleston.
Looking for those voters.
Yeah. Or down in Zenith, a few folks he don't want to afford to lose them. Let's talk about something that does bridge the urban-rural divide. It's Prop D. There's, it's really inspiring, I think, in some ways. It maybe not get a lot of likes on Facebook or whatever, but to see two leaders like Governor Parson, Lieutenant Governor Kehoe, infrastructure is an adult issue. It's not something easy to talk about. There's no simple thing that'll get you clicks. It's actually a big boy adult issue. They've been leading on this highway tax. It's on the ballot in November. The Missouri Times has endorsed it. Several other more responsible papers have. Farm Bureau is out helping. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, we've been in favor of increased highway funding for a while. Every increase in road taxes that's passed in the state of Missouri since we became a state has been backed by Missouri Farm Bureau since we've been an organization. It's something that's important to rural Missourians. We need it. It is tough. I will tell you this. It is tough to be ahead of a conservative organization, to go around in small places and small towns in Oregon, Missouri, and Tarkio, Missouri, and Poplar Bluff and say, we need to raise your taxes. That is not a good look for me, but we do. We haven't raised it since 1995. We've lost about half the value of our present gas tax to inflation. Our parents, our grandparents built a road system, and it's our job to maintain it, and we've been falling down on the job.
I hate taxes, hate them. But I tell you what, it is something you got to connect the state. If you're going to grow as a state, you got to have transportation matters. And I'm sure that folks in the cities will tell you some of these subway systems and stuff they build are important, and they are important. But also been able to get folks from places like where they write people off in the Boot Heel to places like St. Louis matters too, and being able to connect the state is, I don't think Missourians have ever regretted building infrastructure.
No, and it is something that's, and the great thing about our system is that money, a lot of that money is allocated to regional groups. They spend it the way they want. If St. Louis wants to do light rail, then that's St. Louis priority. But in Missouri or in Atchison County, we just want some blacktop. We just want some we just want some asphalt. So everybody gets to do what's important to their area, and that works well.
I think I found one time if you're where Greg Graves was born down in Merideth and Hornersville, I think you can get to the Gulf of Mexico faster than you get to Atchison County from there.
10 hours. A couple years ago, I took my little grandson on a trip from home to Mississippi County, and he grabbed my iPad, and pretty soon it beeped, and he'd used every bit of my data package, because he was downloading videos. So yeah, 10-hour drive from my house to Charleston, Missouri. Well,
let's talk about another issue on the ballot this fall. It'd be Clean Missouri. Now, it's got some ethics proposals in there that I think have been widely supported. It's got a new way to draw state legislative districts that breaks down somewhat on partisan lines. You do have former Senator Dan Ford, you have Senator Schaaf, and some others that have came out and supported this, but it's kind of coming down to a lot of Republicans against a lot of Democrats and a few Republicans. I assume that your thoughts might be more to the gerrymandering part of it, and it's always funny. If you have a majority, there's no gerrymandering.
You're right.
If you don't have a majority, there's awful gerrymandering.
Well, it requires legislative districts to be competitive. Well, you look at the state of Missouri, and you look at the way we voted in the last 5, 10 elections, and the only way to make districts more competitive is to mix rural and urban voters. Well, up until this time, we've done our districts on the basis of compactness and, to a certain extent, shared interest. How do you represent a district that might have a few people here in Clayton in the district and a few people 30, 40, 50 miles south of here in the district as well? How do those interests share? How does one representative, one senator respond to those people, talk to those people, understand their concerns, and represent them in the state legislature? It can't be done. This is an attempt to take politics out of politics, and it just doesn't work. This idea that we can appoint impartial state demographer that's going to make all these decisions so politics won't be involved in what is a political decision, it just won't work.
Well, that old boy, he won't have to buy a dinner in Jeff City.
No, he won't. Yeah,
he'll be a popular guy.
It sounds like a pretty good job, for 9 years you don't have anything to do, and then we have a census, and you're the most powerful person in the state for the next few months.
I'd have to take my boots off to do that kind of math. But look, when you really boil it down, to me, I do understand. Democrats, for the total votes, are underrepresented in the state legislature, but that's kind of the way it goes. For a long time, Republicans have said the same thing. I've always felt like I'm sympathetic to a liberal person or a Democratic person's complaint, but their population is very densely populated pockets right on the state line. In some places in the city of St. Louis, you have the Mississippi River curls around you. You just can't hardly draw districts that spider out even if you wanted to. I think in a state Senate race, though, if you took maybe the Jefferson County seat, moved it up into St. Louis County a little bit, you took the seat in the Buchanan and Platte County, maybe moved that down into Kansas City a little. You could take the Lee Summit State Senate District and change it a little. You could affect, where you might affect 5 House seats, which right now really wouldn't matter, you could affect 3 to 5 state Senate seats, and that would really change the whole dynamic of that chamber.
Yeah, but it seems to me that the argument here is the rules have been the way they are for a long time. We've got bipartisan. It is bipartisan redistricting. It's worked pretty well.
Democrats had majorities. It wasn't that corrupt, was it?
Yeah. And I can't, and basically what the backers of Clean Missouri are saying, we can't play by the present rules. And it's not because we don't need better players. It doesn't because we don't need a better strategy. It's not because we don't need to go out and talk to people and listen and give them what they want. It's because the rules are bad, so let's change them.
Let's be honest. If Democrats had a different position on, or even a more moderate position on guns and abortion, a lot of these districts would be competitive.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about tariffs. Donald Trump, no Democrat was going to be competitive in 2016. Donald Trump took this state, unlike we've ever seen, really, a presidential candidate do. He did promise to do some of these things with tariffs. This is something where, in rural Missouri, where he's undeniably very popular, people may not see the pain yet, but if there's going to be pain in these tariffs, and some of that is going to be seen by farmers first. Is that right?
Oh, well, we're already seeing the pain. We've seen a $2 drop in the price of soybeans.
My buddy Barry Aycock complains all the time. He's not happy.
Partially because we've got a big crop everywhere. Obviously, it would have gone down without the trade disputes, but they've certainly added to it. So it's hurting farmers.
Well, he said the harvest, when there's the harvest, the price goes down a little bit anyway. This price drop started way earlier than it should have.
It started, well, it started in July, as it turns out. That's when, or the end of June. But that's when we tend to see a price break because we're starting to see rains. We know we're going to have a good crop. But it was also when the tariffs actually went into effect. So there's no denying the fact that it's hurt farm prices.
If you could sit down and tell the president and give him a little advice on how to handle these, obviously there's got to be a point where he's got to say, okay, this isn't working. Where's that point at? And what would you tell the president how to handle this?
I would tell him you're exactly right in your concerns about China, and the best way to isolate China is to get back in the TPP, to strongly pursue trade agreements with Japan, with the rest of the Asian companies, to quit screwing around with Mexico and Canada, which he has, and that's great news we had last week when he signed the trade deal with Canada and Mexico. Concentrate on China, isolate them by using free trade all around the rest of the world, and then maybe you get the Chinese to do. He's exactly right. They treat us badly on intellectual property. They don't play by the rules. They don't play fair. So isolate them.
My son Gussie is 2. He's tickled to death when he gets his Farm Bureau card in the mail. I don't know if he's still the youngest Missouri Farm Bureau member, but I bet you percentage of life, he spent about 2 days before he got signed up. He'll be tickled, and we're very honored to have you, the president of the Missouri Farm Bureau, on the show. Thank you for joining us.
All right, thanks for having me. It was great fun.
We'll be right back with our opinion maker panel. David Barklage, Tishaura Jones back on the show. But I want to always take a second. We had a great show this week in Webster County. Talk with Lyndall Fraker, the commissioner, the presiding commissioner, Gary Letterman. We had a good time talking about the history of the county. Go to showmemissouri.com and check it out. If you want to learn the history of your state, you do it one county at a time. You can see it at showmemissouri.com. We'll be right back after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
Looking to get quality insurance at a price you can afford? Now you can, thanks to CFM Insurance. Select from our broad range of farm, home, and rental property coverage. Find an agent right in your local area, as CFM is represented by a network of 200 independent agencies throughout Missouri. For personal and dependable service from a company with a history of insuring the families of Missouri that dates back to 1869, visit WeInsureMissouri.com and find an agent near you today.
It just makes sense to ensure life-saving safety improvements for our roads and highways.
Like rumble strips, guardrails, highway dividers, and safer bridges.
So I'm voting yes for Prop D.
Let's start repairing Missouri's over 2,000 bridges in poor or weight-restricted condition. Bridges getting more dangerous every day for our families, school buses, and emergency responders to cross, with funds regularly audited and constitutionally designated.
Prop D's a bargain to keep my family and yours safer.
At Ameren, Missouri, we know what light can do. It draws people together and chases monsters away. And if you shine it in the right direction, it will light the path for the next generation, showing them what their tomorrow could look like, and spotlighting the possibilities that lay in front of them. Investing in our community by lighting the way forward. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
4 weeks out, and we have a opinion maker panel's already having a good time with this. Peter Merideth, the fleur-de-lis decor state representative from St. Louis. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Tishaura Jones, the treasurer of the city of St. Louis and a former state legislator. Yes. Welcome back.
Recovering. Thank you very much.
Dan Kleinsorge, the campaign manager for SaferMo.com, the Highway Initiative, and a longtime Republican operative. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And David Barklage, the dean of the Republican Party, probably elected more Republicans than anybody's voted for. Welcome back, sir.
You're welcome.
U.S. Senate race. You are from Cape Girardeau. I'm from Poplar Bluff. We're on the fringes of the Boot Heel. Claire McCaskill this week says, sells a bunch of rich people in St. Louis. If I get enough of you to vote for me, I don't need the Boot Heel. I don't think she meant it maliciously, and there's some political strategy truth to it, but boy, it sounded bad.
Uncharacteristic fumble for her. I think that it goes on top of a week where I think we're seeing nationally there's been a consistent wave towards the Democratic Party. I'd say intensity advantage of 7 or 8%, which means that both houses in Congress, I think, likely go Democrat, et cetera. But Kavanaugh nomination and the aftermath of that has sort of created a counter wave. I suspected that was going to go away, but Democrats are continuing to sort of hype up this idea of investigations and impeachment, and I actually think it is keeping the bump that Kavanaugh gave Republicans alive and maybe through Election Day. And I think that pressure is already showing in races like Claire McCaskill. So I think that pressure is helping her fumble. And I have called consistently that this race would be for Claire. I'm now believe that it's a toss-up. And if the Democrats continue on the line about the investigations and sort of post-election stuff, I think Josh Hawley's the new senator.
Peter Merideth, everyone in the Boot Heel thinks that a bunch of rich people in St. Louis think that we're throwaway and worthless. It feeds into a narrative that's as old as the state of Missouri is. She normally doesn't make mistakes like that.
Well, it's an unfortunate comment. I think we're overstating the significance of it.
Are you a St. Louis attorney saying that, or do you think just politically it's overstating it?
Politically, I think we're overstating it. I just don't think it's going to have the impact people think it's going to have. What it comes down to is people right now are upset about their health care costs. They're upset about education funding. They're upset about all the things that right now Democrats are running to fix, including Claire McCaskill. And I think that they realize we need her voice, that she has done a great job of representing all of Missouri. I think, if anything, folks in the city often feel like she's as much of a representative of the rest of the state as ever.
Look, on this show, you've never heard me say she's not a good senator, not a serious politician. I have respect for the senator, but if Doug Leibel is running against her, the state senator from the Boot Heel, and he said, if we do enough job down here in the Boot Heel, we don't need the city of St. Louis, there'd be folks think that's awful off color.
Agreed.
Tishaura Jones, your supporters have maybe the widest breadth of diversity of anybody in the state of Missouri. I've seen Senator McCaskill work hard. She avoided a primary, which she very easily could have had, but another testament to her ability. This is not a good thing. Is there some slipping going on in that campaign?
I think that Claire is, she's probably exhausted, which happens in the last several weeks of the campaign. I mean, this is tough. She's flying back and forth from D.C. to St. Louis, campaigning really hard. And she does. And Missouri.
Still yet. I mean, I would say she's been to more stops than Josh Hawley has, and she's also in Washington.
Right. We haven't seen Josh Hawley in St. Louis. Have you? Who? So you can't neglect, parts of the state that you don't think are going to vote for. You got to go out there for every vote, and she's trying to go out there and get every vote she can.
Dan, is it a missed opportunity if Josh Hawley isn't in Chesterfield this week and then goes down to Charleston and says, hey, I want your votes. We're not writing you off. Is it not a mistake if he's not in Crothersville saying, hey, we remember in Kennett and Malden?
Yeah, I think his best shot is to turn out outstate.
But
so that's what he needs to do.
Missouri, get down to that Boot Heel.
He needs to get out on Boot Hill, but he needs to take that message everywhere else too, and make that link between the Boot Hill and outstate.
You do hear, folks, I think what happens in a campaign is the narrative gets established early, and no matter what the facts are, by the end, it's hard to. Is he getting around enough places? It seems to me like I heard the complaints early on. Now it seems like he is getting around. Is he getting around enough, though?
I've heard that same complaint. I think he's an active campaigner. I think he's getting around. Maybe not to St. Louis. Maybe he's spending his time with his base, but I think he's campaigning pretty hard.
Don't predict how the race is going to go. Give me the number. What's the margin going to be?
I actually think it could go to recount. I could think it could be that tight.
Who wins?
Probably McCaskill.
Who wins?
51-49 him.
Who wins this race? But by how much?
I'd say 52-48 McCaskill.
And whatever the projected turnout is in the city of St. Louis, can she hit that right now with progressive voters?
Oh, absolutely. You know, there's been a lot of voter registration going on. We've got 53,000 new voter registrations in St. Louis City and County combined. So, you know, there's been a huge push on voter registration and education in the urban areas.
And it comes to fruition?
Yes, it comes to fruition.
Give me a margin.
Completely agree. 52-48. Claire.
I was with David before the Kavanaugh thing. The end of that clearly went well in Missouri for Holly. I think I'm with you. Maybe Holly by a couple points. Yep. Something like that. Let's talk about how Josh Hawley would drive from Chesterfield down to Crothersville. The high wave measure, it's nice. We talked about this with Blake Hurst from Farm Bureau earlier in the show, to see adults doing serious things. There may not be a lot of Facebook likes for this, but it actually matters to the state when you see the Governor Mike Parson, Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe, serious people talking about serious things. Why should people vote for this?
People should vote for this because it fixes infrastructure for about the cost of a cup of coffee. So we're not asking for a lot, and what we're giving them in return is long-term infrastructure solutions for our state's roads and bridges. And we have the 49th lowest gas tax in America. The only place that's lower is Alaska, where they make oil. So I think what we can do is we can invest in our infrastructure for the cost of the average driver about $1.50 a month. And once it's fully phased in, we're only talking about $5 a month. That's a great value for the average driver to ensure that their bridges and their roads will actually be safe.
Peter Merideth, I hate taxes. I hate taxes, but you know, if you're going to have nice roads, you got to have them. David Barklage likes signs, so. But seriously, this is. I know you've actually been part of a growing number of Democrats that aren't reflexively pro-tax, but this is one thing I've seen you support. Break down why.
Well, sure. You know, I'm especially not reflexively for any sales tax. But in this case, I mean, as he said, we've got the second lowest gas tax in the state. It's a way to fund roads and bridges that we are in desperate need of funding. And it does so by taxing the people that are actually using those roads and bridges. And I think one thing to keep in mind is this is also a way to get some of that revenue from the truckers that are crossing through Missouri who aren't even within our state, and making sure that they're paying their share of the cost of maintaining our roads and bridges.
Well, those semis that do beat the roads up maybe more than others, and maybe that's a great way to collect that money. What does this mean for the city of St. Louis, though? I mean, a lot of this money will come right back to the city. It might not be on a new 4-lane road through the city. They can spend this on a lot of other things.
We've got potholes just like everybody else, and so you know this helps us with infrastructure with our roads and bridges as well.
David Barklage, at the end of the day, what's politics on this? Why does this pass? A tax increase is not the easiest thing to pass anymore.
Well, I haven't made my mind up where I'm out on it.
Always subtle.
The numbers, I think, are for it. The polling shows that the campaign just has to be able to convince voters that are already for it to vote for it, that they're leaning that way or whatever, so that's good. I think when you look at the numbers, it's going to pave 46,000 lane miles, fix 2,000 bridges, give $123 million to local governments, $100 million to law enforcement over 4 years. It's constitutionally protected and designated. It is audited regularly, but the most important thing is it's been 22 years. 17 cents that was passed in 1996 is worth 7 cents today, yet MoDOT has 2,600 miles more of roads and over twice the amount of traffic. So I think people can do the math, add the numbers, and the polling shows that if people just have to be pushed a little more and they'll be for it, it's getting the yes voters vote yes.
Let's talk about something that I think finally is now breaking into the real political dialogue and maybe even into the general public, Clean Missouri. Something that I saw you and Senator Schaaf out early for. It has a lot of ethics things, changes a lot of things which you would actually know about, being a former legislator, but it also changes how you would draw the state legislative maps. Why is this a good thing?
Well, first and foremost, Clean Missouri is the exact same ethics bill that I've co-sponsored or sponsored when I was in the legislature.
Be the high points. What's that mean?
It stops the revolving door for lobbyists or for legislators becoming lobbyists right after they leave the legislature. It limits lobbyist gifts because we've seen, if you look at the Missouri Ethics website, you see the lobbyist reports. They're, some are good and some are like really out there. It changes our redistricting process to make it more fair and balanced, and it limits campaign contribution limits. So people that are actually elected to the legislature have to report and be accountable to the citizens that elected them.
Why is this a good thing?
I mean, it's one of the most important things we can do to our democracy right now. I think people all agree Jeff City's broken. Part of that is the relationship between elected officials and lobbyists, but part of that is also the way the lines are drawn. Right now, we just don't have enough districts that are competitive, and they're intentionally drawn that way. And that makes it so that essentially we've got a system where legislators are choosing their voters instead of voters choosing their legislators. That's not how it's supposed to happen.
If somebody handed you the pencil, how many competitive seats could you draw in the state and make them actually around a town and not gerrymandered? But honestly, if you're just sitting down to try to have competitive districts, how many could there be?
Well, I'm not a professional demographer, and that's actually why I shouldn't be the one writing those maps.
Probably 20 of them now. If you drew the map to get them, maybe you get 30, 35?
I think certainly. Yeah. I think that's very doable. There's certainly a reality that the demographics of our state have populations concentrated. Democrats really concentrated in the city, and Republicans in rural Missouri. But that's not to say that we aren't seeing situations where intentionally lines are getting drawn in such a way to divide groups, to split them up, to make it so that we're concentrating Democratic districts in as few places as possible.
Dave, you're familiar with the state Senate. I'm not sure this matters in the House as much as people want to make it out to be, but in the state Senate, you could adjust those lines a little bit and see a significant change in the partisan makeup.
That's true, but Clean Missouri is poorly written. I think it's actually going to have to be sorted out in the courts.
David Barklage, Clean Missouri, go.
So, one, I'm always speculative of a campaign finance reform that's being funded by out-of-state dark money. And one of the things it does, it purports to put limits in, but it doesn't limit any dark money and any unlimited, unregulated money from out of state. Two, in terms of the state limits, it doesn't change the statewide limits whatsoever. We've already enacted those. It only changes the Senate limits by $100. So it's not really about that. Is it about lobbyist gifts? Well, actually, it doesn't limit committee lobbyists. So where the legislature is going to subvert lobbyist reporting is where they have lobbyists do givings through committees and groups. And so it doesn't change that either. So you have to wonder, why is NARAL, why is different strong abortion groups, George Soros, these Texas billionaires that ran Enron, why are they pouring this money into a nonpartisan effort? Because it's not. It basically takes a system that we've had in place 50 years, a bipartisan system that's actually in 8 states are getting ready to vote it in as their model as a nonpartisan system. It is taking in and giving all the authority to redistrict people by one unelected official.
We have to give the authority to the TV networks and ask who won the week.
Missouri voters, because the photo ID law and the confusing parts of it that were mostly just serving the purpose of disenfranchising voters got struck down in court.
Tishaura Jones, who won the week?
I would agree with my colleague Peter. Missouri voters, we got a huge victory in voter ID this week.
Who won the week?
I think Kansas City won with Jolie Justice getting in the mayor's race.
Yeah, she'd be a great mayor. Who won the week?
Republicans nationwide, the overreach on the Kavanaugh issue by Democrats is going to thwart the potential wave they would have had.
Let's say Caleb Jones just took over the Missouri Electric Co-op Association and gave 3 new awards. You could be watching this show a year from now and watching on rural broadband. Give some awards to Mike Cunningham, Mike Hugh, and Todd Drusen. Well deserved. Hope to see you next week on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics, sponsored by CFM Insurance, the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts, Spire, and Sterling Bank.